to one and all present over here. I'm Dr. Amrapali Sharma with my co-host Dr. Naranjana. We are your moderators for the third episode of our webinar series. And before starting the webinar, I would like to give you an introduction about our association. The International Association of Dental Students was founded in 1951 in Copenhagen in order to serve the educational needs of dental students throughout the world. We are the Indian Association of Dental Students. We stand by our tagline, never stand still. We provide a productive and a progressive and a passionate platform for all the dental students and young dental surgeons. Public interest is our priority. We bring webinars to upgrade ourselves even when there is a worldwide stagnation of the pandemic condition. So today, we have brought to you a webinar on the topic, not interested in DDS? Well, don't worry, USA has more in store. And now I would like to introduce our guest speaker, Dr. Kaveri K. Gandhi. Ma'am has completed her Bachelor of Dental Surgery from IADS Dental College, India, and earned her Periodontal degree from Government Dental College, Goa in 2017. She moved to the US in 2018 and attended Rutgers School of Dental Medicine, New Jersey, for a one-year fellowship program in Prostho. In 2019, she started with her MDS in the Department of Periodontology at Indiana University School of Dentistry, Indianapolis, and is currently a second-year periodontics resident. Throughout her career, she has spent time in India and United States performing a multitude of periodontal surgeries and periodontal laser procedures. She has done a lot of active research as well in the field of non-surgical treatment modalities for the treatment of chronic periodontitis, such as the efficacy of photodynamic therapy, the efficiency of low-level laser therapy, the effects of ozonated oil. Ma'am is author to multiple publications in esteemed international journals. She has also had the honor of serving as a judge for some of the world's most reputed students innovation competition in US, like 2018-19 Conrad Challenge, INTEL ISEF 2019, R&D Awards 2019. We are so grateful to have you here with us today, ma'am. Now, a special note for all the audiences to please kindly put their questions in the chat box so that they can be answered at the end of the webinar. Over to you, ma'am.
Hi, good morning and welcome everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Amrapali and Naranjana. I really appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys. And just a little reminder to the participants, you guys have been muted. So you wouldn't be able to talk in between if you want to, but you can always pop in your questions in the chat box. And as she said, we will try taking them at the end of the presentation. And so let us get started, okay? So there are a number of different ways you can become licensed in the States. And the one that majority of you are already aware of is the DDS. I know Dr. Jasmine and Reja last week made a beautiful presentation, and she discussed in detail about the steps to apply for DDS programs in the US. So I will try not to make that as the focus of my presentation, and I'm going to provide you information about the other different options that you have. We will talk about the pros and the cons of each of those options so that you can determine which option suits you the best. So before you guys decide what is the best option for you, I want you to ask these three questions to yourself, because the best option for each one of you is dependent upon how you answer these questions. So the first and a very important question is, what is your educational background? And the reason I ask that is because what may be best for my CV may not be best for yours. So like you guys know that I am a periodontist from India. So that automatically makes me a stronger candidate for periodontal programs. And
then passport size photo we pasted onto the application.
Can someone take care of the settings and mute everyone else? Because I did that.
Ma'am, please unmute yourself.
Okay. All right. Is everyone else on mute?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So yeah, where was I? So yeah, you need to ask yourself, what is your educational background? So when I moved here, I had this thing in my mind that since I have done periodontics from India, that will make me a strong candidate to apply either for the periodontal programs because I have a background in that, or maybe DDS programs in the US. But not for orthodontics, not for prosthodontics, not for endodontics, or for that matter, any other specialty. The next question that I want you to ask yourself is, do you want to practice as a general dentist, or do you want to practice as a specialist? And this is important because this is what you will do every single day at work for the rest of your life. So if you like the idea of specializing and doing just one thing, which could be, aligning teeth, placing implants, doing surgeries, then go for a specialty program. But if you feel that, that could get monotonous for you and you're the kind of person who wants to get your hands dirty in all kind of dental procedures, then maybe DDS is a better option for you. The third and the most important question is how much flexibility you need in terms of what state you would want to settle down in the US. And I will talk about this in a little bit more detail in a few slides from now, okay? So one thing that I want you guys to think about is do not decide what you want to do thinking, oh, this might be an easier option, because nothing is going to be super easy, and there is tough competition for all the programs that you apply for. I mean, it's not about the programs in the US, it's also about the programs in India. I mean, you can imagine how difficult it is. I don't know what is the exam called now, but when I appeared for my national level entrance examination for masters, it was called AIPG. So you can imagine the competition there. It is no different in the US. So no matter what option you guys decide to go with, you will require to be dedicated and you will require to be focused. So, and another thing, I've been asked this question a lot of times. If we go for other options like not DDS, do we still need to take the national board examination and TOEFL? The answer is yes. There is no escape from not taking the national boards and no escape from not taking the TOEFL. So you have to take the exams. Okay, so we will move to the options directly. The option number one is you can earn a DDS or a DMD degree. These are the same names to different curriculums. So some schools like to call it DDS and some schools call it DMD. And it is a 2 to 3 year program. And when you apply to this program, you apply through an international dentist program. It's also called as an advanced standing program. As the name itself says, international dentists. So this program is exclusive for foreign trained dentists. So what that means is when you are sending in your applications for DDS, you are competing with people who are trained outside the US. So it just helps to know who your competitors are. And I do not have data to support it, but based on my experience in the country, majority of the international dentists who apply for this program are Asians, and a major chunk of it is Indians. So you know who you are competing with. They're no different than you. They have attended dental school in India just like you have. So do not get intimidated by the process. People are smarter than me. It is very difficult to get in. I'm not saying it's super easy. It is difficult. But if they can do it, I can do it. You guys can do it too. So the next option is what I am doing here. So some states in the US accept an education in specialties, and you can call them residency programs, you can call them specialty programs, you can call them programs that grant you MDS degree or MSD degree. So they're all different names to the same curriculum. And it is, and it is equivalent to what you guys call as MDS in India. So do not confuse residency in the US with junior residency or senior residency in India, which is done after BDS or after MDS, because residency in the US in dental field means MDS or masters from India, okay? And this is going to be the focus of our presentation. I am going to tell you more about what options do you have, which all specialties you can apply to, how do you apply, and a little bit more detail about each of these specialties. So residency programs are offered in specialties like prosthodontics, periodontics, orthodontics, endodontics. It is no different from the specialties that you have in India. The only addition you will see is at the bottom of the list that says AEGD, which is basically residency in general dentistry. I would not focus more on that because that's not my forte. I can provide you information about all the specialties that we have in India, but not about AEGD. The third option is just going to the state Minnesota. Book yourself a ticket and go there. I'm kidding. So Minnesota is the only state in the US that grants license to foreign trained dentists without any additional education. So once you submit your application to the state dental board, well, in India, we just have one dental board that guides all the states. It's not the case in the US. Each state has its own dental board, and they're more like an autonomous body. So they decide the licensing rules for their state. So once you submit your application to the Minnesota State Board, they will assess your application, they will evaluate your credentials, and based on that, they will decide if they want to grant you the license or not. I have not personally done enough research in this option because I wasn't comfortable with the idea of being restricted to be able to practice in just one state in the US. So I won't discuss more about this one. So if you have any questions, do not ask me about Minnesota. And I know this option may sound lucrative, but there are some loopholes associated with this route. So I would say do full research, write to the state board directly before you decide to dive into this option, okay? So let's move back to our two major options, DDS and specialty programs. So I made this side-by-side overview of both these options. So that will give you a direct comparison between the two. So for DDS, as I said already, that you apply through an international dentist program, whereas for the residency programs, we do not have a program which is designed for us. It is the same program that people who are graduating from other countries apply, and also people who are graduating with DDS from the US apply. So if you guys do a DDS here and then you make up your mind to do a specialty, and one of you probably wants to move here directly after BDS, you are both applying to the, we have someone scribbling on the screen. you're both, applying to the same program. So the biggest advantage of DDS, I would say, is that it would allow you to practice in any state in the US. If you see in the second row from the bottom, it says that. So, and it is the only option that gives you that flexibility of being anywhere in the country. So you can decide to just move to any state and practice there. All you have to do is take the licensure exam. Another advantage of this option, which I can't emphasize more, is that this program is designed for you. So I think that makes it more comforting as compared to a program which has people from, everywhere from the globe. Moving to the graduate and the specialty programs and the residency programs. So some specialty programs accept foreign trained dentists. And I'm emphasizing on some because not all programs will accept you if you don't have a DDS. And towards the end of the presentation, I will give you guys a list of program options that you can apply to as dentists trained outside the US. Okay, so, but one thing to keep in mind, can you mute yourself? Okay, that's better. So if you are considering applying to specialty programs, there's one thing that you should keep in mind, and that is that it will allow you to practice only in certain select states. So this option will not give you the flexibility of being in any state in the country. And there are around 9 to 10 states that will give you the license if you directly go in for a specialty program and you skip DDS. So hypothetically speaking, if you know that you want to practice in California or maybe say New Jersey, then residency is not the correct option for you because these states would not let you practice until you do DDS. So let me show you the state options that you have. I've highlighted the row in red color there. So if you do a 2 to 3 year specialty program, you can practice in states like Washington, Texas, Connecticut, Virginia, West Virginia, Michigan. So in total, you have the option of being in around 9 to 10 states. And if you practice in any of these states for a specified period of time, which is typically 5 years, you get licensure by reciprocity, which would allow you to practice in a few other states as well at some point of time. Now this chart I have picked up from another website, and I don't think this is the most updated chart, and the states over a period of time, there is a chance that they change their licensure options. So what I would recommend is, if you are interested in any particular state, go into the state board website and you have all the information available there. But the states that I'm sure of at this point of time are Washington, Texas, Connecticut, Virginia, West Virginia, Michigan. So you will always have some options. It's just that this option takes away the flexibility of deciding where you want to be. The advantage of this option to me was that it lets you practice as a specialist. And I would say that that is a very subjective advantage, because I felt that was an advantage for me because I wanted to practice as a periodontist. But if you want to practice as a general dentist, then DDS is your only option. If you notice here on the chart, there is no big difference in the terms of duration of both these programs. They're both 2 to 3 years. So I would say majority of the DDS programs are 2 years, but there are some which are 2.5 years or 3 years. Similarly, in specialty programs, some specialties have 2-year programs, some have a 3-year program. So perio I know is 3-year because that's what I'm doing. Pros is 2-year, endo some programs are 2 years, some are 3-year. So it's highly variable. It depends on the school you're applying to. It depends on the program you decide to go for. And also, one thing that I would like to point out is there is no big difference in the finances as well. So don't let those factors affect your decision. On an average, and this is just a rough figure because every school has its own tuition, you are looking at around between $200,000 to $400,000, irrespective of what you decide to go for, residency or DDS. But again, don't let this number intimidate you because we have the option of student loans. If you have somebody in the US who can do it for you, that's one option. If not, I know people who take loans from educational loans from India too. And if you are not a citizen in the US, there is some difference in the rate of interest, but it isn't too terrible and it's something that you can manage. So it is totally worth it. That is what I will say. And another question that I get asked a lot, and I know some of you might already be thinking about it, is do you require MDS from India to apply for residency programs here? And the answer is no. Having an MDS from India is absolutely not a requirement to apply for residency programs in the US. And you can very much apply after the BDS too. But I will say that if you have an MDS in the specialty you are planning to apply for, so if you did ortho from India, I would highly suggest that you apply for ortho. Don't switch between streams because that makes you look very confused, okay? Then it makes them feel this person does not know what they want to do. So, well, that's one option that you can do MDS from India and then move here and apply for the same specialty. But if you don't want to do that, you also have the option of small advanced education programs in the same field. So you can move here directly after BDS. And just to strengthen your application, you can do a fellowship or an advanced education program in the specialty you can apply, you want to apply for, because that is going to make your application stronger, and it's also going to save you time because you're not spending 3 years in India and then moving here. So if by now you guys have already made up your mind that, or you're getting inclined towards applying for residency programs, the next obvious question that I believe most of you have is, how do you apply? So I know that Dr. Jessica and Reja, she explained the steps. I don't know if the video has been uploaded already, but for those of you who have not seen the video, can go back and do that when it is up there. But I will still give you a quick overview of the steps. There isn't anything different when you apply for residency versus when you apply for DDS, except the online portal to submit the application. So when you are submitting your application for a DDS program, you submit a centralized application on something which is called as ADEA Capit. But if you want to submit your application for a residency program, you will fill that on another online portal which is called ADEA Pass. So these are the steps briefly. For the purpose of understanding, I like to look at the entire process of getting from India to the US, divided into 3 phases: pre-examination phase, examination phase, and application phase. So the pre-examination phase further has 3 steps. It basically does not take a lot except some money, because you don't really have to do anything. You just have to go to the website called www.ece.org and order an ECE report for you. What that means in simple terms is that you're getting your mark sheets from India evaluated by a body in the US, and they are giving you a GPA out of 4. So when I moved here, I sent in my mark sheets for both BDS and MDS, and I received a separate GPA for BDS and MDS. Oh, wow, what's that? I see people are liking me already. Can you just please take care of that?
Can you please stop scribbling? I request, please.
Ma'am, is it okay if I
you
WhatsApp you
disable-
the settings? Can you disable the thing?
Well, I think we're almost done, so it's just going to take me 10 or 15 minutes, and then we can just stop the screen sharing, and this will be taken care of, okay?
Yes,
There
ma'am.
is an option, I think, for disabling
Figure that out
particular.
at the beginning of the presentation, but
We
somehow
did, right.
it's not giving me that option, so let's just do with this, okay?
Ma'am, go on.
Sorry. Okay, so after you've done the ECE, the next step is register for your Dent PIN. Now, Dent PIN is just like a unique personal identification number that you will require before you can apply for the National Board Dental Examination. And you do this on a website called www.ada.org. And after you complete your application, you can take the test anytime between the date of the application and 6 months after that. So the next step would be scheduling a testing appointment, and you do that on www.prometric.com. It's fairly easy. If you go to the website, it's self-explanatory, and Dr. Jessica already had snapshots of that in the previous presentation, so I wouldn't get into the details of what exactly you need to do. But one advice that I have for you guys is schedule the exam first and then start reading for it. I know this may sound crazy, but I feel I work better personally when I know the date I'm taking the exam on. I think we've grown up in India. We are used to the system of having a date sheet and then working better. So, so when you know that you're taking the exam in X number of weeks or X number of days from now, you'll take it much more seriously versus the situation, oh, I'll take the exam when I feel confident in my preparation. This is just my suggestion, and I know each one of us reads differently, functions differently, so find what works out best for you. The next phase is the examination phase, which is reading for the National Board Dental Examination. I wouldn't get into the details of how to prepare for the national boards because it's like a totally different chapter, and I don't think we have time to go there today. But I will say that it is not the most difficult part of the entire process, as some of you might be thinking. So I personally felt that the application phase was much more demanding than reading for the National Board Examination. So it's basically everything that you have already read during your BDS. It's nothing new. You just have to go over those things again and brush up your concepts. An important change that has been made from the last year is the introduction of the integrated National Board Dental Examination. But if some of you are in that process where you have already passed your part 1, you have until 1st of August of 2022 to take the part 2. But if you haven't started, you have to take the integrated national boards now. So the difference between the integrated national board and the part 1 and part 2 is that the integrated NBD includes 500 questions versus 900 questions which were scheduled for part 1 and part 2 in past. And just like it was in the past, you are permitted to take 5 attempts in 5 years to complete the exam successfully. That does not mean you can take 5 attempts, because a fail on the first, second, or third attempt does weaken your application. So give your 100% and make sure you get it done in the first attempt. But just in case you fail an attempt, you have to wait a minimum of 90 days before your next attempt. And I think after your third attempt, if you fail that, you must wait for a year before you can retake the test. So make sure you get it done in the first time. Moving on to the last and the most demanding phase, I would say, is the application phase. It requires you to fill your CAPIT application if you are thinking of going for DDS, or your PAS application if you're thinking of going for residency. Just like I said before, CAPIT is nothing but a centralized application. What that means is, instead of sending your application to different schools and sending multiple applications, you just fill an online application, and then you can hit the number of schools you want to send that application to. But there are a few schools that do not participate in CAPIT, and they do not participate in PAS. Not a lot of them fall into that category, but there are a few schools. So you can always go to the websites of the schools and check that out. And I feel the reason I said that this is the most demanding part of the application is because it takes a lot for your application to stand out and say, oh, I deserve an interview. Because just like you, a lot of people are sending in their applications and they haven't met you in person. They don't know how strong of a candidate you are. They are just evaluating you based on what you are submitting to them. So I get this asked a lot. What can I do to improve my resume? What can I do to improve my CV? So I ended up creating something which I like to call an ultimate checklist. So the more number of points are checked off in the checklist, stronger your application gets. So the first and the most important thing, I wouldn't say most important, I'll take that word back. So, but it is still an essential part of the application, is a good GPA. Do not ask me what's good enough, because I would say the more the better. So for those of you who are still in their BDS, first, second, third, or fourth year, my best advice would be give your 100% to BDS first, and then focus on this. And aim for nothing less than a GPA of 4, because believe me, there are plenty of candidates out there who have a GPA of 4, and you do not want your application to be substandard on any of these parameters if you want to come across as a strong candidate. Number 2 is pass your national boards in the first attempt. It not only speeds up the process for you, it strengthens your application, it boosts your confidence and morale. So make sure that you're very prepared when you go in for your examination. Third thing is the TOEFL score. Again, the more the better, but at least 100, because there are a lot of schools who would not even accept your application if you don't reach 100. So that's almost like an unsaid eligibility criteria. Fourth is excellent letters of recommendation from your faculty members. You need around 3 or 5 of them. You can have them from the US, you can have them from India, your faculty members, your dean, and depending upon which program you're applying to, some may ask for 3, some may ask for 5. And it's a good idea to start working on your letters of recommendation and keep your faculty in loop and let them know that you would need it. Let them know well in advance. Don't give them 2 or 3 days of deadline. Oh, I want my recommendation to be submitted in next 3 days from now. So give them enough time to work on it so that you have quality letters of recommendation. And fifth is an impressive statement of purpose. And for those of you who do not know what a statement of purpose is, which is completely fine, because when I moved to the US and I was talking to someone who was guiding me through the process, I was like, okay, what's that? So it's nothing, it's just an essay about who you are, why do you want to apply to this program, why did you decide to move to the US, why do you think you are a strong candidate, what are your future goals, and if you feel there are any anything in your resume that needs further explanation, like maybe not a good GPA. So this is your chance to communicate with the admission committee. And finally, I personally list the above 5 points as absolute essentials. After that, if you want to differentiate yourself from other candidates, you can think about getting a master's from the US, and I wouldn't get into details of how do you get into an MPH or MHA program, because I know you guys have already arranged for someone who would touch aspects about these programs. The other option is going in for advanced education courses like externships, fellowships, preceptorships, but I want you to know that these programs come at a cost, which is highly, highly variable. The schools can charge you either a per day fee, or if it's a 1-year program or a 6-month program. So you will have to get in touch with the school to figure out how much would that program would cost you. Another more affordable option would be observing or shadowing in a private practice in the US, because that will help you understand better how dentistry works in this country. It'll give you, it'll also give you more clarity of thoughts that if you really want to be here or not. And it definitely does add up to your resume. It shows that you're interested in being here and you're trying to navigate your route here. So next is research experience and publications. I understand that a lot of us in BDS do not have this, and that's completely fine. But if some of you are masters here, I do feel that having a publication and having some research experience does make your application stand out. Other options are masters from India and continuing dental education programs. So the next question is, what programs, what residency programs can you apply to? So I've put together a compiled list of all the residency program options that you can consider applying to. But I want you guys to know that this list is for the 2020 cycle, and each school has its own requirement, and that can obviously change with time. So some of you might be thinking of applying either next year or a few years from now. So I would suggest that do not rely totally on this list and go back to the ADA Pass website and check the latest requirements of the programs you're interested in. So that's the list. So if you were thinking of applying for a Pediatrics program, there are 14 schools in the US that accept international trained dentists. Each school has its own requirements. Some schools require national boards, some require ADAT, some require GRE. Let's not focus on to match at this point of time, which is because it's not an exam, it's just a process. So I will not talk more about match here. So you may notice that some schools are saying that national boards is not a requirement, but I highly recommend that you still have national boards on your application, because hypothetically speaking, if they have 2 applications, which they feel are equally strong enough, there's a chance that if you have national boards, you will get picked up. And eventually, at the end of the day, in order to be able to practice dentistry in the US, you need to pass national boards. You do it before your admissions, or you do it after you are accepted into a program, but you will not graduate from a program in the US unless you pass your national boards. So please take it before you send in your applications. So coming to Periodontics, Periodontics has more options as compared to Pediatrics. There are in all 34 schools that are accepting international dentists. You can see the class size. The class size for residency programs is not a lot. So it is a smaller class size as compared to the DDS programs. The program that I am attending has a class size of 4. But the good news here is that a lot of schools in the US follow the rule of diversity. So what I mean by the rule of diversity is, like, if they are taking 2 people from America, they would like to take, not necessarily, not always, but if they have a strong candidate from another country, they would like to have you in their program. So next is prosthodontics. Again, a lot of options like periodontics. You have 29 different schools you can send your application to. Orthodontics, again, has a lot of options. 34 schools that are accepting internationally trained dentists. This is endodontics, again, 30 options. There are a few programs like PerioPros and PerioOrtho. These are 5-year programs, unlike the usual 2 to 3 year specialty programs. And there's only one school that offers that, University of Pennsylvania. If you graduate from these programs, it'll give you a master's in both perio and pros. And there's another one at the same school that gives you a degree in both ortho and perio. But I would say that the class size is less. There are only 2 programs which are offering these options in the country, so they're highly, highly competitive to get in. If you feel that your application, it's not something that you feel, but if your application manages to impress the admissions committee, you will get an invite for the interview and the bench exam. So bench exam is required only for DDS. Not all programs, but majority of the DDS programs would require you to take the bench exam with the interview, and some prosthodontics residency programs. Most of the residency programs only have interview. They do not have a bench exam. And for those of you who do not know what a bench exam is an exam that assesses your skills in fixed and removable prosthodontics. So they would require you to do some crown cuttings, some operative dentistry, and also some treatment planning. Each school has its own bench exam criteria, which you guys can look at if you go to the school's website. Okay, this is the last part of my presentation, which is preparing yourself for the financial implications. Again, I know this has been discussed with you in past, and I can only give you an average number because each school has a different tuition, each state has a different cost of living. But when you are considering this aspect and preparing yourself for this, I would say factor in not only the tuition and the application fees, think about the examination fees, think about the airline tickets, think about the interview fees, think about the bench test fees, and the cost of living. Like I said, the number can highly vary. It could be anywhere from between 200,000 to 400,000, maybe a little bit more. But once you graduate, I would say all of you, most of you, I would say all, okay, that's a risky statement, but yeah, all of you will be able to take care of your loans. It's not something that should intimidate you, and it's totally worth it. And if you want to practice dentistry, then this country gives you probably the finest options in the world. So I would say go for it. If you have any questions, we can take them now. And if we are not able to attend to all the questions, you can always DM me on my Insta at Kaveri K. Gandhi. And I will stop the screen sharing now. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a lovely presentation, and I think you answered most of the questions. but there's some explanation and they want to know something more about certain parts. So I'll ask you those questions only.
Okay.
So there's a PG final year student who wants to know the scope of prostho there in States.
I cannot hear you, Niranjana, so I think there's some problem with your mic. Can you just take your earphones off, or somebody else can help me with the questions? Anyone else?
Is it fine now?
Ma'am, scope of prostho in the US.
Akshay, you're much more clearer. Okay, let's do this. Yeah, the scope of prosthodontics in the US. So, like you saw in the list, there are a number of programs that you can apply to. And the only difference that I would say between the US and India is, in India, you can practice both as a general dentist and as a specialist, but things work a little differently in the US. If you do a specialty program and you graduate successfully, you are granted a specialty license. So you practice just your own specialty. And you can choose to have a general dentist license too, but I haven't come across anybody who does that. So I would say that you have that option of practicing as a general dentist and as a specialist. But general dentist would be further limited to 1 and 2 states. Prosthodontics would give you more options. Did I answer the question?
Yes, ma'am. And ma'am, scope of non-clinical branch in USA. Scope of non-clinical branch in USA. I'm so sorry.
Do you mean dental public health?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
OMR.
so you have those options. There are a few schools which offer 2-year programs for dental public health. Again, factor in as the duration of the program reduces, your options in terms of number of states that you can practice and reduce. But there are those options. You can always go in for that. And you can limit yourself to practicing in the few states in the US. And you practice as a general dentist. You also have the option of taking up a faculty position if you do that. So it depends which area interests you the most.
Ma'am, ma'am, can you please explain more about the fellowship program?
Okay, so fellowship programs are non-licensure programs. That is just to gain clinical experience, just to understand how dentistry works in this country. So you can get your hands dirty, and when you go in for your interviews or you're sending in your application, you sound more confident because you are into the system and you know how it works, versus you just move here from India. And in terms of tuition, they can be a little expensive, but you also have more affordable options. The longer is the duration of the program, the more expensive it can get. So you can opt in for a 3-month program like a preceptorship. You can go in for a 6-month externship, or you can go in for a fellowship program. Not a lot of schools have fellowship options, but there are a few schools that give you that option. I know UCSF is one. I went to Rutgers, that gives you that option. And further information in more detail, when do they start accepting applications, what are the requirements, can be found on the website. Most fellowship programs would not require you to have national boards. It's not required. But even for a fellowship, you will need to have TOEFL, you will need to have your ECE evaluated, you need to have a Dent pen, you need to have a statement of purpose, and you need to have a letter, you need to have letters of recommendation. So everything in the pre-examination phase and the examination phase has to be done before you send in your application for fellowship, except the national boards. Because in all honesty, these programs are not very competitive. Not a lot of people go in for fellowships or externships just because of the cost involved.
And ma'am, the exam part, the pre-exam part which you mentioned, what is the final, ma'am, the pre-exam part?
Mm-hmm.
You explained about the pre-exam, exam, and the post-exam part, right? So in that, can you explain something about the financial needs that will be required?
Well, if you compare the 3 phases, pre-examination phase involves the least amount of expenditure because it does not take a lot to order the ECE, and definitely under $100. But the exam, if you're counting the sending in of the application for the national board examination, that is expensive. And when I took my national board part 1 and part 2, I think it was $575. So you're looking at somewhere around 600 to 700 in the pre-examination phase. But this does not include your airline tickets, because you cannot take the exam in the India. You have to fly to the US or Canada to take the national board examination. So that's the rough estimate of the cost you're looking at.
Okay, ma'am. So when did you start preparing and what were the materials that you used?
Okay, so I graduated in August 2017. And I started preparing in October 2017. I took my part 1 in January 2018, and I took my part 2 in March 2018. So I gave myself on an average of 8 weeks for each part. And regarding my source, what I can advise you here is you can choose any of the options that's available outside. I know we have Mosby's, we have Kaplan, we have Dental Dex, we have First Aid, but my personal favorite, if that's what you're asking, I use Dental Dex for part 1. Along with, there are a lot of Facebook groups which are very informative, so I will suggest be active on the National Board part 1 and part 2 Facebook groups, because they keep updating you. People who take exams, they'll keep giving you their feedback and how they felt about the examination. So do that. And also ask their papers, which are the past officially released papers of the National Dental Board examination. That was my source for part 1. For part 2, I highly and only relied on Dental Dex. So my personal favorite for both the parts in terms of textbook is Dental Dex. But you can always go in for First Aid for part 1. I know First Aid for part 2 is not as informative as Dental Dex.
Ma'am, you talked about letters of recommendation. So can private practitioners issue this letter of recommendation? Will that be legit?
Yeah, that's legit. Make sure you have worked with that private practitioner in past. Don't say that I am graduating in 2012, but I have worked with this private practitioner for 2 years. So it should show up in your resume. That person should know you enough to be able to give you a letter of recommendation. But that's legit, you can do that. So a lot of people that I know, they move to the US, they decide to shadow a private practitioner and they take letter of recommendations from them. So that works.
Ma'am, if the private practitioner is from India, then? I mean,
If the private practitioner is from?
India.
Sorry.
India.
Not
Yeah,
there,
okay.
from India. Then is it fine?
You can still have letters of recommendation. I had mine from India, so that works.
Okay, ma'am. Now, option for oral and maxillofacial surgeries, if someone wanted to do that post BDS, or if the person is an MDS in oral surgery, how does it go? Can you?
Don't go there. This is my suggestion. So a lot of programs, I wouldn't say a lot, I would say 90% and above programs in oral and maxillofacial surgery would require you to have a prior DDS. So it is the only specialty that does not give a lot of options to foreign trained dentists. So not a good idea. It requires you to take USMLE, much more challenging, much more difficult, much more demanding.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, in the table you mentioned something as ADAT. What is ADAT?
AEGD, okay, so AEGD is
ADAT. A for America, D for dentist, A for America, T for TOEFL.
oh, it's just ADEA capit. Is that what you're talking about?
A.
Can
Yes,
somebody else chime in and say what she's trying to say, because I can't hear.
Is it ADAT?
Yeah.
ADAT. Okay, I got it. Thank you, Aksha. So that's another examination. Not a lot of schools, just like you have national boards. ADAT is called Advanced Dental Admission Test. But it's not a requirement for a lot of schools. And if you look at the table that I shared with you guys, if it says a no for not required, NR for ADAT, and an NR for GRE, there is no additional advantage of taking those tests.
Ma'am, how much do you score? How much do you need to score for a 4 GPA?
How much?
As you said, we need at least 4 GPA for getting admission there. So how much is it for hair? Like how much we need to score here so that it will be?
Okay, I did not say you need at least 4. 4 is the maximum that you can get.
Okay.
You're scored
I'm
out
sorry.
of 4. So sorry, I lost the question. What is the question?
So ma'am, how much it will be for if, how much we will have to score here in India so that it will be at least 4 GPA?
Oh, do you get GPAs in India? Because when I was there, we used to get mark sheets, and then you send in your mark sheets to ECE here, and this, which is a body in the America, and they find out the GPA for you. So you cannot tell how much GPA you need in India, but if you are scoring really well in all the 4 years of your BDS, you can expect your GPA to be decently good here.
Okay.
But I don't know how they grade it. There is no fixed criteria, like if you get 90% and above, you will get a GPA of 4. So I don't know how they evaluate that.
Okay, thank you.
Ma'am, what is a bench exam?
Okay, so a bench exam is a clinical exam, and you choose this exam on mannequin, and they will expect you to do fixed and removable prosthodontic work, depending upon which school you're applying to, along with some operative dentistry work. So it can expect you to do an all gold crown preparation, a PFM preparation, an all ceram preparation, a class 2 cavity preparation, depends on which school you're applying to, surveying for RPD. So not all schools have it, but for DDS, I would say majority do. And for prosthodontics, also some schools might require you to take a bench exam. And this exam is taken only if you are called for an interview, if you reach that stage. But if you're applying for other residency programs apart from prosthodontics, it just requires you to take an interview, not the bench exam.
Is there any chance of scholarships?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Can we practice in India after MDS in States?
Oh yes, of course you can. I don't know if you will be able to take care of the loans and the amount of money that you invested. So if it would generate that revenue for you in India, but you can obviously go back to India and practice there.
All right, ma'am. That's all for the questions. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
It was great having you here, and you guided us a lot through the entire session. Most of our doubts are clear now, and I hope it is the same for the audience as well. So thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you again.
Thank you for being here, guys. Thank you for making time, and thank you for being patient listeners.
And sorry for my earphones. I really can't help with that.
No, that's fine. I think it's me. I'm hard of hearing.
And extending the vote of thanks to Dr. Navneet. He's the National President of IADS India. Dr. Praveen, Vice President of IADS India. Dr. Nitin Bhagat, North Zone Head. Dr. Palak, she is the IADS President, Delhi NCR. And Dr. Aksha, she's our organizing chairperson. Aksha, would you like to speak a few words?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. So first of all, at the outset, I'd like to thank Kaveri ma'am, who she also happens to be a senior. So, there's a different connection. Ma'am, thank you so much for taking out time and accepting our request. You came here, you told us about so many opportunities which we were unaware of, and you told us told us so well. So I hope it has helped a lot of people. And secondly, I'd like to thank the IADS faculty members to give us this platform. And I'd also like to thank my core team members, starting with Palak, Shreya, Amrapali, Sachin, Manav, Ritvik, Manya, Gracie, Ansuya, You guys have done a great job, guys. Starting from the posters to promotion and everything, you guys have worked really hard. Thank you so much. And of course, our moderators, Niranjana ma'am and Amrapali, thank you for conducting this session so well. And also to the institutional teams for promoting this webinar. You guys have done a good job. So thank you so much. And over to you, Niranjana ma'am.
Thanks, Siksha. Thanks a lot. And this is for the audience. Kindly fill your feedback forms, which will be sent to your WhatsApp ID or WhatsApp group. All right. From that, you will be able to avail your e-certificates later. So do not leave the group until you receive your certificates. While filling the feedback forms, make sure that you're putting your name right and all, so that there's no mistake in the future in the certificates as well. And kindly stay tuned for our next episode, which will be coming soon. We'll inform you very soon about them. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks a lot, ma'am. And
Also, Aniket, I'm so sorry I missed your name. You too, thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Have a good day, ma'am.
Can I end the meeting now?
yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.